Good afternoon. We are starting with breaking news as many Phoenix City officials are breathing a sigh of relief. The Department of Justice announcing today that it'll be closing its investigation into the Phoenix Police Department and retracting its previous findings of constitutional violations. The department had been under federal scrutiny since last summer. Welcome, everyone, to 12 News at 1. I'm Tram Mai.
And I'm Troy Hayden. The Biden administration's DOJ released a report alleging a pattern of excessive force, discrimination against minorities, and violations of First Amendment rights from Phoenix PD. And now all that just goes away. Also the threat of somebody running the department basically from the federal government. So 12 News journalist Joe Dana joins us now with this major decision. Joe.
This really is a legal victory for the police department's union and some city council members who always alleged these findings were just overblown. Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego says the decision will not change the city's efforts to reform its police department, as PD had already made several reforms to training and accountability policies. And no doubt this will save the city a lot of money in potentially years of legal fees and other expenses. Now, the leader of the Phoenix Police Department's largest union tells us the end of this investigation could also boost recruiting for a department that's severely understaffed.
As evidenced by 30 years of consent decrees and federal oversight, recruiting always suffers when those are in place. So the fact that this is no longer that cloud over the Phoenix Police Department, I believe that people will now start looking at us and making decisions to come and test for the Phoenix Police Department to become a Phoenix police officer, rather than going to Mesa or Goodyear or some other outlier.
Now, the DOJ was pushing for Phoenix Police to enter a consent decree and accept federal oversight, similar to what we saw with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, right? Under Joe Arpaio, that reform process still continuing. It has cost hundreds of millions of dollars. So while many view this as a vindication for police, you do have civil rights groups who felt like unless you had a federal presence in the police department, you were less likely to see long-term reform. So they certainly are not happy about this, and we're still trying to get some responses from them this afternoon.
Well, and considering since Trump's been in office, I mean, was this really going to be a surprise that this was going to be dropped?
Probably not. So when he took office, he ceased all federal investigations of law enforcement agencies, clearly setting an agenda to take the heat off of police. And so, yeah, a lot of people not surprised by this. And the amount of money being saved, yeah. The hope is by a lot of people that the reforms that have already taken place will last under whoever that new chief will be, because that new chief will have a lot to say.
Yeah, and let's talk about the sheriff's office for a second. You talked about that they're still under the DOJ, basically the receivership. They're looking at them and making sure that they run things the way they do. Jerry Sheridan, the sheriff, told me that he's got as many people working on compliance as he does general investigators for general crimes. So think about it, something goes over 40 people that were working on just compliance and all that money they're spending on that.
Yeah, and I think some had argued, well, some of those compliance officers are doing other roles, and so maybe it's a mix. But for sure, there has been a concern about just a layer of bureaucracy at the sheriff's office that is very expensive.
And not having local control. So this is a big, so we'll be covering this throughout the day today.
Absolutely.
All right, Joe, thank you.
Thank you. Well, Phoenix is not the only city where investigations are being retracted. The DOJ is also ending investigations into police departments in Trenton, New Jersey, Memphis, Tennessee, and Mount Vernon, New York, as well as Oklahoma City.
Also ending its investigation into the Louisiana State Police and starting the process of dismissing lawsuits against police in Louisville, Kentucky, and also Minneapolis, Minnesota. So yeah, a change in administrations, a change in leadership at the Department of Justice, and a change in policy. So the DOJ opened its investigation into Phoenix PD back in August of 2021. Let's look back. How did we get here?
12 News journalist Erica Stapleton has been following this case for years and looks back at the timeline.
It wasn't one thing that led to the DOJ investigation. It was several.
Today, we are announcing that the Justice Department is opening an investigation.
The DOJ announced what's called a pattern or practice investigation into the Phoenix Police Department in August 2021, looking at 5 areas of conduct. The first, use of force. Phoenix hit a high in 2018, with 44 cases where police officers shot at a person. 23 of them were fatal shootings, the highest that year of any major metro city nationwide. Since that high, The city's had fewer shootings by officers each year. The data 2017 to present shows that the county attorney's office hasn't filed any criminal charges against Phoenix officers in any of the cases it's reviewed. Some of these cases resulted in multi-million-dollar settlements with the city of Phoenix, like Dion Humphrey, shot by a rubber bullet in January 2020.
And I was scared.
Police said they mistook 19-year-old Dion for his brother, who was being investigated for a robbery. Dion survived but suffered injuries, and the city agreed to pay him $5 million after settling a lawsuit in that case. Another example, Ryan Whitaker. Police showed up at his door for a noise complaint in May 2020. Whitaker, a legal gun owner, answered the door with a gun in his hand. Within seconds, police shot and killed him. His family settled with the city of Phoenix for $3 million.
Passes 9-0.
The second area of the DOJ's investigation, whether the police department has discriminatory policies. The third, whether police violated First Amendment rights, most notably in its handling of protests in 2020.
This is the Phoenix Police Department.
Phoenix police accused of falsely arresting some Black Lives Matter protesters for being involved in a gang. The charges were eventually dropped, and the prosecutor involved in the case was let go from her job.
It's been awful.
The fourth area of investigation, police treatment of those with a mental illness or going through a mental health crisis. And the fifth, whether Phoenix police violated the rights of homeless people. The department came under scrutiny in this area before 2022, after sweeps of what was then the city's largest homeless camp. Officers were accused of trashing unsheltered people's personal belongings, like IDs and birth certificates.
We will review incident reports, body-worn camera footage, and other data and documentation collected by the department.
Since the DOJ started this investigation about 29 months ago, they've done just that. As of November, Phoenix Police says it provided more than 147,000 documents, 22,000 hours of body camera videos, 200 hours of ride-alongs, and 130 interviews. The city's made changes, too.
Our police department, like any other entity on the face of the planet, always has room for improvement.
Then Police Chief Jerry Williams announced her retirement less than a year into the DOJ's investigation. In her place, the city manager went with an outside hire, Interim Chief Michael Sullivan.
Do solemnly swear.
Who's had experience working with the DOJ and leading cities through police reform.
But I can tell you, I'm focused on accountability.
Phoenix Police shared it's done more de-escalation training and implemented new policies like diverting mental health calls to civilian providers. The city also changed how it cleans and clears homeless encampments after fighting local and federal lawsuits.
And so since this story first aired, you may be aware Michael Sullivan, the police chief, has also stepped down. So right now that job is open, but they won't have to deal with this hanging over their heads.
Right, exactly, which is huge. 12 News will have continuing coverage of the DOJ report being dropped, both on air and online. Let's get to some more